We're very happy at Indiana Center for Middle East Peace to be welcoming you, Max, to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and to have you present to us on occupied politics, Israel's war against Palestine and its supporters. Max Blumenthal is an award-winning journalist, editor of the Gray Zone Project, or Gray Zone, grayzoneproject.com, and has been a commentator and an author of many different books, including Goliath, Life and Loathing in Greater Israel, The 51-Day War, about the war in Gaza, and his latest film is Killing Gaza. So Max, again, welcome.
Great to be with you here.
Thank you. While we're talking about Killing Gaza, let's just open up the interview by asking you, tell us about what you discovered while you were in Gaza in preparation for this documentary that you made.
Well, I wasn't prepared to make this documentary. I entered the Gaza Strip in the second phase, or the last phase of the war, with my colleague and friend Dan Cohen in 2014. It was August 13th or 14th, 2014, when we entered during a 5-day ceasefire in the war. And we came in just with Dan's SLR camera, which is very much like the camera that you're filming this on, and started filming in the rubble of Shujaiya, which is a neighborhood east of Gaza City, which had been blanketed with Israeli artillery fire and missiles, and people were just standing there in the rubble of their homes, ready to talk to us and tell us what happened. And I realized that much of the international press corps had already left and moved on to the next thing, which was the rise of ISIS, or the strengthening of ISIS, and that we should make a documentary. Dan was able to get Israeli government press office credentials to continue entering the Gaza Strip for the next year. So while I was back in Washington, we would plan what to film next in Gaza. We would follow some of the people that we had met during the war as their lives continued under siege with no rebuilding taking place. And then we'd get the footage back in Washington where I was editing it, and we'd get it translated. It really was a 3-year-long process to get all of the footage in, to process it, and then to conceive the documentary and edit it. And we released it last year, and there's been a really strong reception for the film. What we aim to do with it is to take ourselves out of it as much as possible. There's this model of documentaries in the West where the protagonist, who's usually a person from the West, goes into a war zone, and they're your interlocutor, and you can relate to them, and they become actually the center of the story. Yeah. And it's more about how the war and being in that society affects them than who should actually be the subjects. And what we aim to do, it originally was I wasn't even going to do voiceovers. It was going to be kind of a natural sound, experimental kind of thing, to immerse the viewer in the experience of siege and destruction as much as possible. Ultimately, I had to do voiceovers to guide them through the film and provide context and chronology. But you still have that immersive experience where the central character is people from all sectors of society in the Gaza Strip, whether it's someone from middle-class Gaza City who is an aspiring painter who painted her way through the war, to a young man with a mask on who is in a armed resistance organization in a training camp, to a man who had been a fisherman and his business had been obliterated by Israel's naval siege, and he's now contemplating suicide and saying that the only way he can stay alive is because he happens to have 2 children.
While you're in Gaza, the arts play a large part in resistance too, painting, but also dance. Hip-hop, I know about. Say a word about how the arts play a form of resistance in Gaza.
We profiled Gaza's first breakdancing crew, and they are now like so many other people in the Gaza Strip who are talented or extremely educated and well-trained abroad. And they've taken their talents to the outside world, something they weren't able to do. They're called Camp Breakers, and we interviewed their founder, Shark, who said that, you know, in breakdancing, just like in jazz or any other, you know, collaborative art form, you get to refine your talents by competing against others, and it's like in jazz when you jam with different musicians, and so they couldn't compete with European b-boy crews or Americans, and so they couldn't learn the new moves and show off their moves and see how everything worked out because they're under siege. Actually, when we met with them first, one of them asked if we could bring him some guitar parts because he had a guitar but he couldn't repair it because his fretboard was broken. So Dan actually brought in a new fretboard and some DJ gear because they couldn't import DJ gear from Tel Aviv on one of his trips. So you can see the siege from so many different angles through the different characters we profile. And, you know, most of the young people we met there who spoke English, who were our counterparts, are now living outside Gaza.
We're all looking for love. We're all hoping to be redeemed. When justice rolls down like water, righteousness, a mighty stream. Justice rolls down like water and sets us free.